live right now.
Oh,
and now we're live. Hello, guys. How's it going? It's me, Zimzilla99. And going from left to right, we have with us Adam or Scrye Productions.
What's up, everybody?
And we also got Mini Jesus himself, the Micro Davis, KaiMo Films.
Shit, my phone just went off. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's what you had to do? Should have muted it.
It's a notification for this very live stream. I'm on top of things.
Oh, you know what? Never mind. You know what? I forgive you for that.
I'm getting my phone right now.
Forget my sins. But I would also have to say, in light of the fact that my girlfriend Alyssa Goji Geek is out of she's not interacting with the internet right now because she is at boot camp for the Navy. I just want to show off 62 Godzilla, her favorite Godzilla design. So whenever she sees this, she knows I love her. So there you go, guys.
Shout out to Alyssa for being in the armed forces.
Mm-hmm. And we already got someone in the chat. Pug Goji 1964. How's it going, my dude? But I think the best icebreaker to talk about is the fact that I have these two weebs in chat with me who love the anime trilogy. And I actually, prior to this stream, while I was eating, I was listening to KaiMo's podcast with monstrosities in 2x speed because I was like, I woke up.
You're one of those people.
No, because I wanted to wake up early and watch it, so I had enough time to do it normally. But then I woke up later. I was like, oh, damn it. I have like no time to do this. So then like I'm eating and then I'm like listening. I'm like, before I get on the stream.
Oh.
So like I think also because Scrye is in here too and he likes his anime. What is your favorite out of them, Scrye? And I already know KaiMo's favorite. But
I don't even remember what I said.
You liked City, you really liked Planet Eater, and then you thought Planet of the Monsters was okay.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement, except I liked Planet of the Monsters because it set things up on my favorites. Definitely Planet Eater. Like it just for one, it's got my favorite kaiju in it. So
I think like arguably out of like the anime films that get the least amount of hate, it's probably Planet Eater. Mm-hmm. That seems to be that one. I'm curious because you guys like it so much. Why would you say that? I'm
kind of a sucker for like deep psychological, I guess, like delving into characters, and I like the idea of a battle within the mind of someone else instead of a physical battle. You know, everyone. I don't know if you remember this, but Matt told me on the podcast that one of his friends said, just look at the poster for 15 minutes and then you have the end fight between Godzilla and Ghidorah. But I like the fight between what's his name, Metphies,
Haruo and Metphies.
Yeah, I just like the idea of the actual like core fight inside the head of Haruo. It's just something so unique. Obviously, they had a micro budget and they had very little time to animate these. So, I mean, I just really like the direction they went with that fight. And I think they executed it pretty well.
I don't remember on your podcast, did you mention what their budget was to begin with?
No, all I know, and this is from D-Man, all I know is that they had an extremely low budget and a pretty quick production time. I mean, even for animation, CG animation in particular, I know that they had a very rushed production schedule.
I would probably even have to say that knowing that generally thinking about inflation and that regarding how much the yen made, comparing it to some of the later Showa films, I would be curious to see like the production histories and like the budgets overall between those films and what we got, and sort of comparing their overall quality, because I think the Godzilla history, Godzilla's history, has a deep-seated bit of just crunch time and super low budgets, with like the Heisei films being like the only exception, and then the Millennium films having pretty good budgets, but then having super strict like times to film.
Right.
I know you brought up GMK. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's one thing I think the entire Godzilla series just has a problem in general, is that these movies are pumped out so regularly that they might not have the most time to flush them out. I mean, yeah, you could talk, about Marvel movies. There are 3 a year, but you can't say that they do have a pretty good production value. Obviously, they have all the money in the world because Disney's producing them.
Yeah, they got Papa Disney money.
Yeah, they do. So I think that might be one of the reasons why some of the, especially the earlier movies, might be so less highly regarded than others. But I mean, the rush production of a lot of them does suffer. Does make the movies suffer.
And like, even if you have some of the best people in your field, I always forget the writer off the top of my head. I know he did Psychopaths. I would say like some of his characters aren't even, they're not his best, but like I can see that a lot of his typical writing styles, his tropes, carry over from his previous work into the Godzilla films, and I think it's probably because of the rush time he wasn't able to flesh them out as much as he did in, say, Psychopaths. But that also has the benefit of being a series, which the anime films were movies and not like a TV series with multiple episodes to muse
Oh my
over.
god! If it was only an anime series, it would.
Well,
so
I know there's always been people saying that it was supposed to be an anime series to begin with, and then it got turned into 3 films. So, it's always an example of like, oh, what could have been in that case.
Personally, I enjoy watching the anime series just as one long, like 6-hour movie. I think that's just the best way to enjoy it. Because the plot is less, and I mentioned this on my podcast with Matt from Monstrosities. The story is not the 3-act structure, or doesn't conform to it as much as a normal film would. And if you watch it all in one sitting, it's kind of like a TV show. It is better. It would have been better in smaller segments, but if you watch it all at once, there is a definite cohesion or cohesiveness.
I think it's definitely something where, unlike another trilogy that had a lot more money to it, Star Wars. I know Matt's a big Star Wars fan. Star Wars, the Star Wars movies.
Never heard of that.
Oh yeah, no, we don't talk about the new Star Wars movies, but yeah, looking at The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and finally the rise of Skywalker. Like, you really see that between Force Awakens and Last Jedi, there is a little bit of continuity there, but like it does not have the same kind of follow through as, say, Planet of the Monsters and City on the Edge of Battle do, and the same can be said between Planet Eater and City. And then like Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, those two, it's essentially like if you cut out another film and then you had Rise of Skywalker, which I found to be but this isn't a Star Wars channel, but I could go on for about that.
I remember I was watching Chris Stuckman's review on that the other day, and he said that it was almost like Abrams made a sequel to The Force Awakens instead of The Last Jedi, which
that always makes me laugh. It puts a gigantic smile on my face because of what happened in Last Jedi. So
I love all of the stabs JJ took in
Ryan
at Ryan in the third movie. It was amazing. I love it.
Like, I never saw Rise in theaters. I saw it, like, my friend showed it to me, and those are the best parts of it. But I like also just like how so much was wasted. And that's something else we could talk about was wasted potential between Star Wars and then the anime Godzilla films. A lot of people always talk about the wasted potential of anime as a medium in comparison to like what could have been, and
more
then
conventional.
Yeah, more conventional anime, because you brought up like your experience with animes like DBZ and stuff like that. And actually, Scrye, what would you say your baseline anime is? Like, if you were to say, like, generally this is anime to someone, what would that be?
Dang. That's a tough one.
I just hit you with those hard-hitting questions. I'm sorry.
I know, because
we're
like
only 10 minutes in. Come on.
For me, I'm a huge, like, what got me really into anime and I guess really kind of defined what kind of stories I like was Evangelion. But That's a really hard one to start someone off who wants to get into anime. I honestly suggest if anybody who wants to get into anime, they check out Cowboy Bebop, the entire series.
Yeah, I would say Cowboy Bebop, and then like another one I always see getting paired with as Trigun. Have you seen Trigun?
Yeah, I like Trigun, but it was too the idea for the story and the plot was like really far fetched. You know what I mean? Like, and if you're not accustomed to anime in that sense, it wasn't. It wouldn't be. It would just be too far fetched as an anime. You know, if you're trying to get someone who's never watched anime before, that is not one of the series I would recommend. I would totally recommend to start them off with Cowboy Bebop because it's set in a futuristic setting, kind of like what was the movie that came out not too long ago?
The anime series?
No, it was a movie, the 2049. What was it?
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
Jinx.
Like people, people like Blade Runner, and they could get behind it in the sense that it's set in the future. I didn't actually know that every single one of those things were androids, but when I found out, I was like, oh, this is even better. Like, but my point is Cowboy Bebop was set so far in the future, but not so far that the characters were unrelatable. Every single character is relatable. There's a lot of like mafia kind of stuff going on there. I mean, it's a sci-fi series that has a lot of real world tones in it.
It's it's very hard sci-fi it's very hard grounded hard sci-fi is what you call them. Around like writing circles, that's generally what people call is grounded hard sci-fi.
Right.
And I would say, like a lot of people would say arguably that the anime trilogy is harder sci-fi than the Godzilla series usually is, because you're dealing with a lot more science.
It takes place in a post-apocalyptic world. I mean, there isn't a Godzilla movie that does that.
Right, exactly, and that's another reason why I really like the anime series. Like, so if you're trying to get into Godzilla, you know, when they were having the panel on Monstrosities a little bit ago, they were talking about what they would recommend people to get into Godzilla. I would recommend the Monsterverse, even though I think that is a terribly inaccurate representation of what Godzilla is as a cultural symbolic message or symbolic entity. But if you're already into tokusatsu or anime or any of that stuff, Shin Godzilla or the anime trilogy is the first things I would recommend, because they have, especially the anime trilogy, so Shin Godzilla in 1954 are their own things. Like, you can't really compare them to anything else, but as far as
except each other, pretty much
except each other, because it's, you know, Shin Godzilla's a hard modern reboot of 1950.
I think like maybe the third closest would be 84.
Maybe,
if you like,
maybe, but with the anime trilogy, it's the first setting where we're in a post-apocalyptic thing where Godzilla has destroyed us. Like, we weren't fighting him. He didn't just show up and we're scrambling to figure out how to deal with him. No, he kicked us off the planet essentially. And now we're trying to come back because we can't find anything out there that's suitable for us to call a new home. And then when we get back, everything's changed to conform around Godzilla. And, you know, I think the biggest point, or one of the biggest messages I really liked about the movie, was how when Metphies was talking to Haruo, saying the reason why Godzilla is a monster is because of your hate for him. You know, they had the Hotua that were living in peace with him, and everything that, you know, shaped itself to fit Godzilla. They were living fine. They had a thriving culture in society. They had a nice religious view of the world. And they didn't worship Godzilla. They worshipped Mothra, but they were still respectful, and they never viewed him as an enemy, a threat. Yeah, they didn't have hate for him. He was a force of nature. And I honestly think that the way that the different kaiju were portrayed in this movie, you know, you had Mechagodzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Baby Godzilla. The only thing we didn't see was Rodan, but one could argue that was what the Servum. You know.
We technically did see Rodan as a skeleton at the start of Planet of the Monsters
Oh,
when
that's right.
Project
During the
Hetera,
news.
when they talk about Project Hetera on the news, that skeleton is actually a dead rodent.
No. That's not
Let's
what I
be
mean.
technical and pedantic.
Oh, yeah, that's semantics. That's not what I mean. But my point is, they had really interesting ways of dropping some of the big five in there, and each one of them was very unique. I mean, I loved how they represented Mechagodzilla as a city because of the technology used to create him. You know, we had the original in the 70s where aliens created him. We had the one in the Heisei era, which realistically wouldn't have been created had it not been for Mecha King Ghidorah coming back from the future and giving us that kind of technology to create a giant robot. Mm-hmm. And then you had Kiryu, which I was one of my favorite incarnations of Godzilla because they built him off the bones of the original Godzilla, you know, and that's something I could see us actually being able to do realistically. But this one with the nano metal and all that kind of stuff, it was a really interesting way of seeing how Godzilla would face off against his mechanical counterpart, which didn't look anything like him, which was great. It was great.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at you this whole time, Nate, just looking at your reaction to see like your little like.
No, I'm processing it because I think like if there's one thing I appreciate more than anything else, it's when I get to hear what other like my opposition has to say, because it definitely gives you a good perspective and it helps you go through the process. And I think that's something I'd say that's missing in fan discourse a lot of times these days, because everyone's like, I think specifically, I'm not even going to get into it too much because I don't think it's really needed here, is like the whole Ultraman stuff that happened on Twitter. I'm not sure if you know about that, KaiMo. I know Scrye knows about it. Scrye knows about that, definitely.
With D-Man?
Yeah, with D-Man.
I know a little bit about it.
Yeah, like there's so much bad faith argumentation being used and no one really wants to legitimately look at it from a scale of like, okay, let's stop, let's discuss, and let's try to understand. This isn't like, I want to prove you wrong. You're wrong and you're bad and your opinion's bad. But
you know, the whole thing about that, I've been talking with Matt. I've really been trying to get more into Tokusatsu because I'll be honest with you, I'm mostly like hardcore Godzilla fan, sprinkle a little Gamera on the side.
Hey, and then Matt in the stream. Sorry, I just saw Matt in the stream.
What's up, Matt?
Oh, yo, there he is.
We're talking about your favorite subject, Matt.
Yeah, I'm bullying weebs right now, Matt. I'm sorry.
No.
I could add you, but
Tim's bullying weebs.
Yeah, your apprentice is on his way to bullying more people and gatekeep opinions. Also, Kaiju Silla says yes. I'll just do this to get all the people in here. Brandev says hoi. And I know Gajillion said he had to do something, so I hope you're doing well, my guy.
That's a great name, Gojillion.
It's actually Goji Lion. I'm sorry, I keep saying it. I keep saying it's Goji.
But it sounds cool, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, because I was like, it has to be the best way possible to say it. But then I'm like, oh shit, that's not.
It's either a numerical number or it's Evangelion and Godzilla. Gojillion. I don't know.
I honestly think, and I know this is probably going to surprise a lot of people, I'm 35. I've been watching Godzilla for a long time, like since before most people that are in the fandom were born. And what I love about Shin Godzilla in the anime series is that they have changed him. He's not your standard from the Showa era, the Heisei era, big guy in suit walking around with monster romps. Like they adapted and evolved him to a more modern audience and a more modern way of telling stories. Because if you look on Netflix, if you look on Hulu, if you look on Amazon, all these different series like The Expanse and all this, they're not just mindless space battles or anything like that. There's some hardcore, social commentary, political messaging, all that kind of stuff. And that's what I was hoping that they were going to do with Godzilla, because it makes me feel like they've matured the franchise. Mm-hmm. And I understand that a lot of younger people were really upset with the anime series because what they really wanted to see was a monster romp. Like, they were okay with Planet of the Monsters, but when Mechagodzilla City came out and they didn't see a robot Mechagodzilla fighting Godzilla, they were completely
they wanted to see Dragon Ball Z with Godzilla.
Yeah, that's what they wanted to see. And I'm like, listen, you're young, you really can't appreciate this. Like, it should be appreciated. If you really want something like that, go back and watch Heisei or the Millennia series or the Showa era, because they were literally written and scripted and developed to cater to that audience.
I would say even then, it's that like I know a lot of people always say, "Oh, watch earlier stuff," and I would say this as a I think a lot of people may know this, but I'm also a pretty huge Halo fan. And
oh, really? The poster in the background doesn't say anything.
Yeah, I know. Right? Oh wait, oh yeah, I totally forgot. Like how since there's 3 of us here, you can't see the giant like Master Chief that's in the background there as well.
Well, I mean, on the other side, you have a Master Chief helmet.
An MCC. Oh yeah, the MCC thing and Halo 5. But yeah, so like as someone who grew up with Halo's CE 2 and 3, and then moving into Reach 4 and 5, and seeing the gameplay that I came for change radically into something I did not really like. Like I put up with Reach and its armor abilities and some of its really shitty map design, and then I put up with 4. I liked its story, even though there was so many issues with 4's story, even though it was really good. And then I have a soft spot for that because despite its good story, it's still a terrible multiplayer. But it got my best friend into Halo, and he played the later games and the earlier games, and he loved the earlier games. And then when Halo 5 came along, and then it's essentially like jumping super soldier laser tag, where you're just jumping all over the place. It's not a single movement. The weapon sandbox it's been super muddied because there's so many additions been put into it. And I think with Halo Infinite coming out with the trailers and stuff, and you're seeing a lot more classic art style, there's a lot more attention being put on let's appeal to the older fans. I think a lot of younger people are always saying I would love to see some older stuff that like I may have liked being brought back with newer kind of effects and stuff. I think because I think that it's always important to appeal to like what is the standard in a series. I think there's nothing wrong with that, and I think that I think a dismissal of that is, I wouldn't say wrong necessarily, but I think it's important to understand why certain people who are younger may appreciate it. Because actually, speaking of which, KaiMo, how old are you in comparison to me?
I'm almost 17.
You're almost, oh, so you're younger than me. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, I look so young. I need to grow a beard or something.
I'm trying to. It's not great, but
I literally had to cut this, you know.
Yeah, we have to like do the D-Man challenge and just kind of grow it out.
No, the thing is that his is like a chin beard. Nothing up here. His is all down here.
Yeah, right there. But I think it's definitely interesting because you're looking at Scrye, who's like older than me, and then I'm like essentially a decade younger, and then below me is KaiMo. And I would say like what was the first Godzilla movie you saw, KaiMo? And then I'm gonna ask Adam as well.
My dad says it was Godzilla vs. Mothra, 92. We had a VHS tape. We got rid of it. Unfortunately, I wanted to keep it, you know, for nostalgia's sake. In retrospect, I think it was 92.
Mm-hmm. And then for Adam, it was for you. It was which one?
Ghidorah the three-headed monster. As far back as I can remember.
That's super interesting because it would have been nice for me to like then get a Millennium movie in, but for me it was actually Godzilla's Revenge, unironically, was the first film I saw. I think that was like one of the first few that I saw that got me into the series. And I remember seeing Godzilla or Ghidorah the three-headed monster, but I remember I have fond memories of being a kid watching Godzilla fall into that volcano and just like just balling up. It was so emotionally driven. Oh, so good. Anyway, continue. Yeah, because I like remember how just like I was young enough where I could probably identify with Ichiro, and then seeing all the different Godzilla battles, and I thought for some reason Godzilla had shape-shifting powers because the suit kept changing between them. So I was like, Godzilla can change his appearance. That is so awesome. First it'll look like that, and then that, and then that. And then I find out later, oh, it's stock footage. Still cool though. But I think definitely that it's good to have a lot of variety, and I think the anime films provided that. I thought you were. Sorry, you said Godzilla's Revenge, and I was thinking about 1984. Not. That's not the movie I was talking about. I never.
Yeah, 84 has tons of stock footage in that.
I never saw Godzilla's Revenge until I was in my 20s.
Oh, yeah, so you were like my age now when you saw Godzilla's Revenge.
Yeah, I didn't see that until I was like six, I don't know, like 10 or 11. So
Yeah,
I have no nostalgia for that movie. Absolutely
yeah, I have
none.
so much nostalgia for that film because for me, like I know exactly how it went for me when it came to films. It was Godzilla's Revenge, then Godzilla versus Mothra, then Godzilla King of the Monsters, then Terror of Mechagodzilla, and then Rodan. Because I had the classic media versions, and
Oh, sure, yeah.
I went based on their color and then who was on the box. So since Godzilla was on Godzilla's Revenge and it was green, I was like, I want to watch that one first, and I loved it. And then afterwards, I saw Mothra. I like blue, so I'm like, there's a moth on it. Okay,
I like how
fine.
Zim's like so methodical in how he does stuff.
I was actually kind of the same thing because Rodan is my favorite like non-Godzilla kaiju movie, or at least from Toho. But I didn't like the cover because it was all purple.
It was purple, and like I don't mind pteranodons or anything, but I'm like, yo, there's dinosaurs, mecha dinosaur, blue but moth, but then purple pteranodon. As well as I was also when I was younger, like Rodan's theme always kind of just unsettled me. Like it's there you go, there it is. There's the King of the like Godzilla King of the Monsters. Like see dinosaur looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rodan was like one of those movies that I scared the living shit out of me, and then I rewatched it a few years ago. And I was like, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, like it just like the like all the different instruments they use for that theme. I was always like, scurry. I don't like it. No.
That's one of my favorite themes that Akira ever made was
Rodan's
theme.
Like as I've gotten older and it doesn't scare me anymore, I really love that theme. I wish I could use it more, but just it never fits the tone for some of my videos, so I never get to use it. So I'm like, damn it.
It's actually kind of interesting to see like or listen to all the different themes that appear in Godzilla movies, and then they're actually originating from like War of the Gargantuas or Mothra or Rodan.
Or Varan.
Yeah,
Varan, especially.
And it's like,
I still haven't seen that one yet.
Neither have I. It's on Amazon Prime actually.
Yeah, it is.
Really?
Yeah, Varan. Yeah,
Varan. Isn't Dogra and Atragon are on Amazon Prime too?
I know
like
so.
a ton of the Toho CinemaScope video versions were on Prime.
I think they might be, but it's just kind of interesting to like hear all these classic themes that I associate with Godzilla, and then have them be like evolution of Godzilla military march videos, and then it's got a photo of War of the Gargantuas, and it's like bullshit. But apparently it's true. It's something.
Kind of makes you feel a little like, like
I've been lied to my whole life.
Yeah, like, and I think who was it that was? I was talking to Matt last night, and he said something about he's kind of getting over the whole Honda fanboy. Everybody loves
Defense
the
of Honda movies.
And I'm like, I kind of feel the same way about Akira Fubuki because I mean, he's got his themes are classic because they're what started the franchise. However, not gonna lie, the anime soundtrack is really good. The Shin Godzilla soundtrack was good, even though they reused a lot of themes. From all over the place.
Dun. I remember there was some kid who's sitting next to me in the theater when I saw Shin for the first time who like yelled Evangelion. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, it is Decisive Battle that's being played.
Mm-hmm. And so like, but with the MonsterVerse, not counting King of the Monsters, I really enjoyed the soundtrack from 2014, and I even enjoyed the soundtrack from 1998. It's got that
theme song is pretty good.
Got that Independence Day vibe. You know what I mean?
We do not stand for 98 in this chat. I will kick you all out. Actually, one second. Zilla99 said he's heading out. All right, thank you, my dude. Thank you for dropping by. It was nice to see you in the chat. But there's like Godzilla has such a wide range of music and musicians who have gone through it all. I forget who's the guy who did the composer for the anime trilogy, because I know he also did Space Godzilla.
Takayuki Hattori.
Hattori, yeah. There's a lot of people who say that Hattori's like his soundtracks in Space Godzilla in 2000 were not that good, but he evolved as he went on into the anime trilogy. I would say I'd say he like even for like Space Godzilla, he had some really good tracks for Space Godzilla, and then I actually have 2000 soundtrack downloaded. For what he has, it's a lot of synth in 2000 in comparison to like Space Godzilla, where there's a lot of drums and trumpets. Mm-hmm. Like I think it's the one where Godzilla's like approaching Birth Island. It's like that dun, 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 dun. I love that track so much. It's such a good track that he did. And then obviously, I think he really got to flex his muscles in terms of the anime trilogy, because that definitely has a really
that is such a good. It's such a good soundtrack.
If people don't think that the soundtracks from the non-Akira Fubuki people, like from the composers that made that, you should come to my channel and just see just how many people are asking for non-Ifubuke remakes, because I remake all those themes and stuff. Like, I get a ton of requests for Space Godzilla remakes, and I'm just like,
yeah, even though you hate Space Godzilla.
I don't actually.
I know you don't, but like, you have your issues with Space Godzilla.
Well, no. I have my issues is when we get into.
I love Space Godzilla.
Oh, I do too.
My issues are when we get into the debates about the different kaiju. I honestly like I was talking with Matt on the live stream about Destroya.
I was there for that, yeah.
I was just like, why does everybody think Destroya is this big Billy badass? He's not. He's really not. Like, Space Godzilla could wipe the floor with him. But I look, you want to bring it on? The first and only weakness we have is the extreme temperatures. If that's the only weakness Destroya has, guess what? Space Godzilla wins. Why? Because he's got telekinesis and he can bring that fucker up into space. Bring it. I
think like contextually, from what we know, I don't want to get into that debate right now, because I still want to talk a little bit more about the anime trilogy, because I think actually Space Godzilla versus Destroya is an interesting debate. But I want to see your opinions on my take about City on the Edge of Battle. It has very little to do with like the construction of the film or the story, or actually it kind of has to do with the story. I objectively think the Bill Saluto were right and did nothing wrong.
Are you talking about like when they were?
I'm trying to remember it.
When they made Mechagodzilla,
every decision they made was right. They never did anything wrong.
I mean, they
didn't tell the humans anything. It's like,
why?
I mean, you're kind of supposed to if you're working together.
No, you're not.
No. Bill Saluto are way smarter than humans anyway. Why would they have to tell humans anything?
There is a fundamental law that people tend to forget, and it's above any other law out there, man-made, religious, or whatever. It's called the law of nature, survival of the fittest, and that's exactly what the Bill Saluto did.
And then I think another thing I dislike about City on the Edge of Battle is that for some reason they turn out to be villains, when if they just kept working with humans, and I think they would have just beaten Godzilla anyway. I'm not sure if it was like a issue of pride that made Bilobe and Gilgu like choose to like force Haru's hand in that case, because I think if they just sent Bill Saluto pilots in there instead of Haru and Haru's side chick, because I forget her name because she gets fridged so easily, their plan would have probably worked anyway. That's just me. And I feel like, considering all they did for humanity prior to the events of the anime trilogy to begin with, them just suddenly having this big heel turn feels more like a fan service appeal, because they're based on the planet, the Black Hole Planet 3 aliens, than it is an actual legitimate transition of their characters. Because considering they are they're based in logic, I feel that the decision was done more of an out of pride rather than strict logic, in my opinion. I just want to see what your thoughts on that.
I'll let KaiMo go ahead. KaiMo.
Well, it's an interesting take for sure. I'm not going to deny you that. Personally, in terms of the heel turn, I do agree with you that it is more for fan service. It's like, oh, remember the bad aliens from the 70s, you know? So I understand what you mean by that, but I don't know. It's hard to explain. I don't like these movies because, you know, like, because I think they're like genuinely good movies. I think I don't really know why I like them. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Did I just break doing the same?
I think you made me rethink exactly why he likes these movies.
Well, no, I mean, I love Final Wars. It's my favorite movie of all time, but that's because of the nostalgia that I have attached to it. That's the movie I grew up watching. That's the one that my parents were like, no, we have to be there to watch with you because of all the Matrix fighting and like the 4 swear words that Don Fry says. The original movie is just objectively a good movie, and you know, like King of the Monsters, I love that. It was exactly what I wanted, and that's why I love it. But I don't know why I like the anime. Oh, Scrye.
Scrye.
But I don't know why I like the anime trilogy. I love the concepts that are in there. Some weren't executed well, but I if someone's like, why do you like them? I'm just like, I just do.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. However, I think like the one things people always like to talk about the themes of the anime trilogy, and I think like it does touch on a lot of deep themes that I think are not ones that people want to talk about necessarily. But I think, especially in the realm of sci-fi, however, I think a series and a franchise that's handled themes and more gray morality better than anything else, aside from like the old days of like old sci-fi, is Warhammer 40K. I would arguably say that like the themes in the anime trilogy are so much more better expressed in Warhammer 40K than the anime trilogy. And I think that they're like I'm a huge sucker for world building. Like I love to world build, creating universes. That's my big thing. And I've had problems with some of the anime trilogy's world building, which I feel fundamentally affects the writing because of the importance of the world building mixed in with those themes. Like for example, the idea that the Exif were somehow able to look into the future, and they saw that time has no end. So time has an end, and everything just kind of dies. So because of that, they're like,
we became very nihilistic.
There's some space noodle. Let's give ourselves the space noodle. And I think that like the idea is very it's textbook. I don't want to be mean when I say this, but like Reddit nihilism, in my opinion. I think like, you read Nietzsche and you see like what he said about nihilism and like creating your own purpose for yourself in the world. I think for like a civilization as advanced as the Exif, turning to like Reddit nihilism, as it were, it feels really odd to me, especially when you could have explored an idea or like given Ghidorah some better connection to the Exif. Like, for example, with the Chaos Gods in Warhammer 40K, the gifts of chaos directly affect their followers, or people who may not even follow chaos are still affected by chaos itself. And this turns people away from their faiths or their beliefs in other things like the God Emperor or the Imperium, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel that if there was something that Ghidorah was giving the Exif or even humanity, aside from just a big death in like just the cosmic sense of it all, I think that would have helped make the impact of its themes a little bit better. Because when I look at them, I just feel to myself, I'm like, maybe it is good, interesting themes, but is that it?
Well, one theme, I don't know, Nate, if you remember this from the podcast with Matt, the main theme I took away from it was this spectrum with two extremes. On one end is science, and one end is religion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember that was like one of the big things you talked about a lot.
And then and then in the middle is the happy medium. In the original, or in the first movie, it's the happy medium where everyone is working together, both science, religion, they're working together. And then when that fails, they go to one extreme. In the anime case, it goes to science first. When that fails, it goes to religion. And then when that fails, it just goes right back to the middle, or they just don't exist. And that's the big theme I took away from that. And like you said, that was one of the things that I was talked about a lot with Matt.
I would say even arguably that I think looking at I understand the logical process of that analysis, but like with my take on the Bill of Saludo, how I feel about them, I feel that like, because I don't understand the logic in their case, I stop at like, I don't consider their technological choice to be an extreme one. I consider it maybe if we were to say science left, religion right, I would consider their take to be center left rather than extreme left. And then the Exif's taste not even to be like extreme left, it's almost like extreme upward if we're gonna put it on like a compass, as it were, for like ideas. But like looking at it from the binary that you did, I can totally agree with your assessment of it. It's just when I think about it from a writer and a world builder. I just feel that it doesn't just quite hit the notes for me. And then maybe just because I've come in, even James here says Warhammer 40K is such a unique universe, powerful, and maybe beyond moral understanding. Like, I think like the theme being so similar to like something like 40K, which has been around for decades. I think it maybe might have soured how I analyzed the anime films. Maybe that's just me. It's really just me in that case.
So I think in order to really understand the message behind the anime trilogy, and this is part of the reason why I love it so much, I'm a huge history buff. I've studied modern history, ancient history, mythology, religion, like anything that has to do with how we have developed as a human race. I've studied it. And there's one thing that nobody ever talks about, is that every culture, every civilization, every race of quote unquote intelligent entity, beings, whatever you want to call us, has a starting point and has an ending point. Look at the ancient Egyptians, they're no longer here. Look at the ancient Romans, they're no longer here. The Sumerians, they're no longer here. All of the old empires, which one could argue we're still kind of here, but they're not really here. Like the Japanese Empire was ended as soon as they got hit with 2 nukes. Like,
yeah.
And with that being said, the anime trilogy represents this so well, in the sense that all of these kaiju came to life at the end of humanity's cycle in their current civilized form, if that makes any sense. And
Like
it was like they caused the end, or they didn't cause the end. Humans caused the end. If you go back and you look up the prequel books or whatever,
yeah, Project Mechagodzilla and Planet of the it's also called Planet of the Monsters.
right? They talk about the events leading up to the anime trilogy, and
like the anime trilogy is essentially humanity's Rome, as it were. It's humanity's fall of Rome.
It's what happens after the fall of Rome. What the anime trilogy actually is. The prequel novels are the fall of Rome. The anime trilogy is what happens after, because after the fall, we'll use Rome for a really good example.
Yeah, I'm probably most experienced with Rome and maybe some of the Middle Eastern like nations and stuff. Rome's just a good example for everyone in the audience, because Rome's talked about so much.
Well, if you don't know anything about America's history, America's culture, civilization, our government, our due process, everything about us is based off the Roman model.
It's based off the Roman model, transferred British common law.
We're major changes, and now
it's with your history books kind of talk.
But that's
but to be simple, yeah.
To be simple, America was modeled off the Roman Republic version of democracy and stuff like that. Anyway, what happened with Rome is towards the end, you had a bunch of leaders that were being greedy, that were being selfish. They debased the currency a lot. Like, they were sucking up all their resources, constantly at war, trying to expand the empire, which was never an empire. It was never supposed to be. It only became an empire after the line of Caesar really deposed and did away with the republic notion of how things were supposed to be run.
Yeah.
But towards the end of that, what happened was they used technology in the form of building the Colosseum, having these giant
gladiatorial
events and stuff, and they called it the bread and circus. They gave their.
Why are you so old? Because my dad says the exact same thing.
This is why the anime series is so good. If you study your history, it is literally a universe where instead of talking about where Godzilla pops up in the height of our technology and the height of our evolution as a culture and advancements, it's talking about the end of our civilization as we know it, not necessarily caused by the monsters, caused by our own doings. And what ends up happening in the anime trilogy, by the end, what happens to the remnants of that culture and civilization? They adapt and they become part of the Hotua culture and civilization, which is they assimilate, they adapt, and they change, which has no representation of the past culture of humanity. Like the Hotua don't have spaceships, rockets. They have projectiles in the sense of, you know, bows and arrows, but
It's actually a paleo society.
well, it's not so much that they were a paleo. All of the technology destroyed humanity. Like we had pollution, we had all this kind of stuff. People are ignoring, like you can see it right now with what's going on in the current state of the world, not just in America, but all over the place. Like people are really ignoring what's really important. They're talking about inconsequential things that have been gone and done with for over 150 years. And we're allowing, like, you know, it's interesting. And I'm not trying to necessarily bring up politics, but it's more to the point of what happened in the anime series. Right now, a lot of people don't realize that 1 in every 5 children are starving in the U.S. because our food banks have extremely bad shortages, and yet we're sitting here talking about racism, right? Like, can we get past the racism part? We haven't had that for a long time. It wasn't a big deal, and now that it is, it's completely not allowing us to see all the actual problems we have and that we need to be dealing with. And that's exactly what happened in the anime. Everything that they were doing and what caused them to actually leave the Earth was because they were so hell-bent on keeping things the way that they were. And the monsters were just like, no, you got to change and you don't have a choice. And by the time they actually did, there was only, 5,000 people of the human race left?
I think, yeah, around that number. KaiMo, do you know the exact number or no?
No, I'm not into those books.
Yeah, no, the anime trilogy number.
This is in the very first movie. They talk about there's only like 5,000 people. The whole reason why Haruo gets pissed is because they send a ship. And
on the Earth.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about on Earth. I wouldn't have known the Earth.
Yeah, no, because like post the Eratrum leaving, there were several thousand people left, but they were like all in small pockets. And then after like people started just setting off nukes on the planet to try to kill more of the monsters, the population just kept dying and dying further until essentially only the Hotua who were left.
And then the Hotua, they knew they had a working history of what came before the monsters. Even though it was like 20,000 years in the past, they had a working history, and that's why they developed the culture that they did, and that's why they didn't progress certain things. Like they knew about Mechagodzilla City, and they didn't try to assimilate it into their culture because
they technically did. Because remember, they were using the nanometal.
That was it. But that was it. They only used that because it wouldn't pierce, like their normal weapons wouldn't pierce the servum or whatever when they were being attacked. But they didn't like.
Try to improve their daily life and their daily functions.
Exactly.
They were like extremely practical in a sense.
And that's the issue. Like if you think about it right now, here in the world, around the world, we have some of the most privileged young people because all you have to do is worry about getting a high score on Halo or getting you see what I'm saying? Like we don't have to worry about going and getting our water. We don't have to worry about having our own food. And that was the whole message that the anime trilogy really sent, and it's only if you pay attention to history and stuff like that do you see what they were really talking about, because the guy that wrote the script and directed these films, he knew what he was doing, he knew what he was talking about. And if you go back and you check some of his older works, that was kind of the point he was making. So this is definitely, I can totally understand why younger audiences didn't like this movie, because one, they wanted to see monster romps. They wanted to have that nostalgic feeling. But this was a 100% play on history, and in a post-apocalyptic world where this guy was king, not us.
Sorry, wrong one. This guy.
Okay, I don't have the toy.
Yeah, we have to gatekeep Adam about not having enough toys. You're out of the fandom now. How does it feel?
Sorry.
But I have to say that it definitely, it is, I think even to even further elaborate on what you're saying, I think like even equating the different solutions that were done throughout the anime trilogy could be replaced by the different kinds of like different social problems that people want to push and be the main issue or the main solution to everything, to all the problems. And that problem really isn't even there.
It's not really that simple. Like I've had many arguments about our current state of the world with
geopolitical landscape.
Right. And like I'll bring up one thing and then jump to another thing and jump to another thing. And they're like, can't you just stick on one thing? And I'm like, no, because it's all connected. And that's part of the reason why you had in the beginning in Planet of the Monsters, you had science and religion coming together as one to try to combat this problem. Didn't work. Then you had science more specifically, and they were trying to, go the whole technological route. That didn't work. And then in Planet Eater, it was religion. And we saw how badly that ended. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the day, what really was the solution? Evolution and change and adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
That was the ultimate
and a good balance of technology and science again, and more reduced roles, because like you're obviously still using technology to fight off the actual dangers that you face on the day-to-day, and religion is less of placation and more reverence than anything.
Exactly.
And Laggy,
so I didn't mean to go there.
He said, interesting, I cannot believe I never noticed those things about the anime trilogy. And I say that's exactly why I like having KaiMo, Adam, and like everyone I've had on the streams, because everything people have said definitely raises a thought in everyone's mind about certain topics, and that's why I like giving the free forum to everyone who comes on, and just let them have their spiel.
I mean, I can't praise the anime trilogy enough. Shin Godzilla did the same thing, except it was more literal, like about now, what's happening now in modern times.
Its setting lent itself to be more contemporary.
And the reason why I cringed at when you were talking about the Monsterverse and King of the Monsters was because I don't want to say I had expectations, but I had really high hopes that they would delve more into the mythology of the monsters than what they did in that movie. Because like, if you don't watch the special features of the Monsterverse, you completely miss out on the fact that they brought in ancient deities from our actual history into the fold, like the Anunnaki were shown on that mural where you see Godzilla with Rodan and Ghidorah on either side. There are Anunnaki underneath Godzilla worshiping him. And if you don't know who the Anunnaki are, then you're just like who? What are these guys with the wings? Like those were the ancient Sumerian, ancient Babylonian gods and goddesses, Marduk and Enki and all these other Gilgamesh. That's where Gilgamesh comes from. And if you don't see that, like, and they didn't dive deeper into that.
I know that originally in like all the old concept art, one of the Titans was actually Sargon, which if you know about Sargon, not the YouTuber, the actual historical figure.
Right.
But I knew that when you mentioned Sumerians, I knew I had to make that joke just for the lulz. But I would say, thinking about KaiMo as well, I would agree that what I got, I very much enjoyed. And I can also say it's a bias because I saw that with my girlfriend, with us together, and that was a very special experience. It was the first time I ever saw her face to face, and that definitely like will always influence my bias. And I would say that like I think what came out was the Godzilla spectacle. But I think when a lot of people who may be older fans are definitely looking for that substance in terms of like a universe to delve into. And I can definitely say that despite my love of the Monsterverse, there is a lot of world building I wish they expanded on a lot more, which I hope they do, because from what I've heard, aside from the new Godzilla book and the new Kong book that are coming out before Godzilla vs. Kong,
that's so
the
stupid. Future
of the Monsterverse might just be limited to books, which I think if they explore more of the world in the books, I'd be down. I need a good read for myself.
I think that the problem I have with doing your world building outside of the movies is that, you know, it has a far smaller reach than a movie, because I mean, all these people with like the Star Wars legends and the expanded universe. I know your opinions on that and how Disney just like yeeted it out.
Oh yeah, no, you do.
But I mean, I don't care about the legend stuff. I just watch the movies, and then whatever in that is in that. I don't watch Clone Wars, the Rebels. Yeet that out too.
Oh, good.
So
and then you piss Adam off.
Man.
but the thing is that it's, I mean, who's gonna read this? I mean, the average Joe is not going to read Godzilla Awakening.
Adam, you're not average. You're old.
Right.
You boomer.
The average,
Okay, boomer.
I'm a millennial, technically.
Yeah. Okay.
but the average movie goer who is seeking entertainment is not going to read a comic book to get more world building. They're gonna go to the movies to get that expansion, and I think that's just one problem I have with it. I mean, I enjoyed the comics. I love like a lot of the artwork. Godzilla Awakening is a bit iffy on some of the artwork, but
I think it had like multiple artists, which is why it had such.
I agree with KaiMo.
weird.
Like that's one of the things that really upset me with the MonsterVerse is exactly what you're saying. Like if you watch Lord of the Rings, which is a really good example of this, you watch Lord of the Rings from Fellowship to Return of the King,
And
you don't need to know anything else. You really like they fill in all the blanks. You kind of get an idea of who like who's doing what, who Sauron is. I mean, they tell you right at the beginning. They give you like a 5-minute expose of what Sauron did, and they got rid of him, and then we jump to the Shire. You know what I mean?
That also had the advantage of being a book first and having all of its stuff in there, and then being crammed into a movie. I would say a lot, even looking at Lord of the Rings, there's some stuff from the books that didn't translate into the movie. And even speaking on to some of its expanded stuff, a lot of its expanded stuff has always, I would say, Tolkien fans are very much the kind of fans who are very, very picky about what is and isn't canon. Like War in the North isn't canon. Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor, those aren't canon, but Shadow of War specifically did a lot of things that took it out of canon, even though Shadow of Mordor could have been. And essentially, it's just The Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings, and then the Silmarillion, which are essentially like really the only canon works, and that's all stuff that Tolkien's like his family wrote or published. And that's all coming from one person and someone who had a ton of experience in research and then was also influenced by his experiences. Which I think that in comparison to something like Godzilla, where you had so many different people working on the franchise, you see the marks that they all left on it. It definitely shows with the anime trilogy that it had a lot more of a consistent vision to it, which is another thing that can be said about the most overpraised thing in the tokusatsu fandom right now, the Gamera trilogy. I'm sorry, I love those movies, but every time I hear about the Heisei Gamera trilogy, you make me like it less and less out of spite for it, because I hear it all the time.
Oh, so it's just overexposure.
Only with the Gamera trilogy. Gamera trilogy is the only thing. Like you're coming. This is someone who had the original ADV versions of the Gamera trilogy, and I loved them as a kid. Like, oh my gosh, those were really good. But then every time I've heard the same talking points over and over again, I just feel like the conversation's gotten stale in regards to them. But
when it comes to the Gamera trilogy, I just want to say one thing: they were made back in the '90s. Let's get an updated Gamera. Like let's see some CGI VFX.
Give us that trailer. Give us the movie that went with that short film. That's exactly what we need.
Yes,
that's all we need.
That's such a weird case of like everyone was excited for this, everyone wanted this. It's like the Fallout, everyone liked that, and then it never happened, and then everyone disliked that.
Well, the weird thing too is that everyone at Comic-Con loved it, and who knows Gamera? Like it's such a niche property. Like you go down the street, what do you think of Gamera? What the fuck is Gamera?
Exactly. I think I have around enough millennials to know that like whenever I mention Gamera, they'll do the spin thing from Gamera versus Guiron. They'll be like, "Oh, it's the turtle that did gymnastics," and I'm like,
you know, guys, I just realized how weird this film is. Yeah, it's kind of goofy.
like I think the reason why
Oh,
people like the anime trilogy so much and praise it so much is because it did everything right that the 90s Heisei Godzilla movies didn't do. They had a good consistent story, good consistent character development, really good angles, special effects, but at the end of the day, there really wasn't, in my opinion, there really wasn't much difference between the Heisei Godzilla series and the Heisei Gamera trilogy.
Yeah, I would say that. There's in a lot of cases. I would say there are shots and stuff in the later Heisei films that definitely don't compared to like what Shinji Higuchi was doing in the Heisei Gamera trilogy. And I would say that's arguably due to the fact that like I think they needed better people working on the Heisei films. I'd say Toho's biggest problem,
it could be that they made a couple of films that weren't even scheduled or planned to be made. Space Godzilla Destroyer. Like Mechagodzilla 2 was supposed to be the last film in the series, and Mechagodzilla 2 is arguably one of the best films in the Heisei series.
That's such a divisive film. Like it's the late Heisei film that you will like. You either have people who hate it or people who love it. Like I have never. I think the only reason why there is so much critical like discourse about Mechagodzilla 2 arguably is because everyone says it's the one somewhat decent late Heisei film, and people will be like, no, I'll tell you why. And then KaiMo's giving me the Jesus look. He's like, yes, my child, I have to judge you like the sinner you are. What do you have to say? Speak, man.
Explain thyself.
I think when someone just said it. I cannot raise my eyebrow that high. I think someone just said,
Nah.
Oh, that's good.
I just look like the guy from Biolante at the beginning.
The Seradian.
Yeah.
Filthy Seradians.
Most
likely a lot of people would be interested once when Gamera gets his first trail up until Gamera starts flying and people will think it's goofy. That's I know, James, that's a Rob point. That's definitely a Rob point. I know you. We both watch ETN together, and I know Rob always says if they'll see Gamera flying, they'll think it's goofy. I like. There's always assumptions like that. You need. I would love to see like test audiences do. There's so many opinions about films that I wish you could have control groups for. And then just repeat experiments over and over again to see like things about films and analysis, because people will be like, oh, that's dumb, no one will like that, and then people like it, or people say, oh, that's awesome, people will love that, and it just ends up being terrible. And I don't know, I just wish there was more ways to better quantify some of those things when it comes to film analysis, if you catch my meaning. But I wanted to talk about this earlier since I know. Did you catch Monstrosity's panel? Because I know you said you might have.
Yeah, I did. You
did. What God has everyone watched Sentai?
Nope.
From here? Nope. Rider?
Nope. I've only seen Zoe, and that's only because Matt recommended it to me.
Okay. And I'm gonna talk about Ultraman in a little bit, but of course for us it's gonna be Godzilla. So you get one Godzilla movie to recommend to the newcomer. What is it? Why? And we'll start with Adam first, and then we'll go to KaiMo.
A Godzilla movie to recommend to a newcomer.
Yeah.
I hate saying this, but it would probably have to be.
Also, if you say 54, I'm going to kick you out of the stream.
No.
He's going to say 98.
No, get out.
No. I was going to say King of the Monsters, because it's. No, you know what? No. I'll say 2014. I'll say 2014 because King of the Monsters didn't appeal to the masses, and 2014 did way better, and it was a more Americanized. If we're it depends on like, so if you're talking about for Western audiences, 2014 hands down.
To make the question a little bit more descriptive, it's if you want to get them into the franchise as a whole and make them a fan, not just kind of start them and be like, hey, you might like this. This
Yeah,
is if
2014
like
easy.
2014.
2014 because it's got, despite what people say about it following the humans more, it's got a really nice plot story. Things take place over like what 2 days, and then
2 days or so.
one of the best things you've ever seen in any Godzilla movie was the kiss of death at the end. So I think that would be like, whoa, look at what Godzilla did. That was so awesome. And then I wouldn't recommend King of the Monsters because it's too fast paced. It doesn't do the franchise justice, in my opinion. It's just too fast paced. You don't know who any of those characters are or why they're relevant to the story at all. And it does a really bad job of telling you all this kind of stuff. And then, God, the editing. But 2014, I would say that's what I would recommend because it's basically a Jaws version of Godzilla. You know what I mean? Like, it's really good. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. It makes you kind of go, you want to look more at the people, like, or more at the monsters, even though they're not giving it to you as much. And then the faces that you see in the movie are very familiar faces from the Marvel franchise, from the Breaking Bad franchise.
Mhm.
Like, these are familiar faces. Whereas when you go back and you watch King of the Monsters, not a lot of people know who Ken Watanabe is because I think the last major Western film that he was in was The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise.
No. Batman Begins. He was in Batman Begins. He was the fake Ra's al Ghul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then again, nobody like we're talking about DC. Let's just leave DC out of this.
Hey, that was
a good
good,
movie.
DC.
That was a good movie.
I'm not disagreeing. The whole Dark Knight trilogy was a good movie, but they wouldn't, if Liam Neeson was Ken Watanabe's character in King of the Monsters, then people wouldn't recognize it. Oh, that's Qui-Gon Jinn. But there's a lot.
I would love Liam Neeson in a Godzilla movie. Now you said that, god damn.
There's
The
not
arrogance of man is thinking nature's in their control and not the other way around. Let them fight.
Now, and then how you said that, it sounded like a somewhat more gruff Sean Bean, and then I'm thinking he'd be perfect for a Godzilla movie because he's gonna die anyway. So,
but 2014 has a lot more recognizable faces from a lot more popular franchises. Would help ease the transition into the movie. The story's pretty good, all things considered. The special effects are pretty good, all things considered. And you may not, for a fan like us, it's definitely not a monster romp like we would have wanted, but for general audiences, I mean, it proved to do well in the box office, so why not? It beat Spider-Man, and I'm a huge Spider-Man fan.
I've dropped off with him after the whole thing with Miles.
Oh, I don't care about the MCU Spider-Man.
Oh no, not even that. Just like Ultimate Universe Spider-Man was really good, and then got killed off, and then what they were doing with him later on in Prime World. But that's comics, and KaiMo still needs to answer Jesus. So,
yeah. I have to agree with Adam. I mean, 2014 is a good stepping point for a lot of people. But if we're going to be talking about the Toho movies, I think Shin Godzilla would be a good one to start off with because I think it's most people would agree that it's a really good movie, like pretty good to really good. I would love to say Final Wars, but that's just too fast paced. That's just you need to have the prior connection to all the other monsters in order for it to be enjoyable.
If it was like if it was possible to be a Toku fan and not like or know about Godzilla, I think Final Wars would be the film I'd introduce a Toku fan to Godzilla. Like if they'd be like, because like it borrows so much effects, it's got like a lot of human-sized action going on for it. It's very much, and then like even the kaiju action itself, it's very more humanoid in its presentation, and it's not like Showa kind of human action. It's very much like similar to like what you'd see in Rider or Sentai when it comes to their monster action, mixed in with a little bit of its human aspects.
But maybe Godzilla vs. Mothra or Mothra vs. Godzilla 64. I think it might actually be a pretty good starting point because, it's not so bleak that you want to not watch it again, like with 54. It's not a mess like Raids Again, although I do enjoy that movie.
I do too.
I love that. I actually really love that movie. I even love Gigantus the Fire Monster. Like actually the dub, I do not mind that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Such a fun movie to put on in the background.
But I think Mothra vs. Godzilla would be a good stepping point if we're going more classic Toho.
Ooh, you know, I'm gonna bring another figure on because I know what I'm picking, and it's also Toho too. So, yeah.
I hope I didn't like overstep bounds. I didn't want to necessarily get into politics and stuff with the whole anime trilogy.
Oh no, don't worry. It's good. You're good. Don't worry.
It's just what, like, you know, being someone from the military, I can relate to Haruo and his perspective, and then being a history buff that I am with, you know, Zim. How many late night calls have we been on where we're just talking about world building for little ideas that I've had for animations and stories?
I'm like thinking. It's been like, because we did that for like a couple of weeks.
If you have to think about it, that's a sizable number.
Yeah.
Like
so
we like almost a month. Like essentially like
I would call a couple times a week, and we would be on the phone for like, I don't know, 6-7 hours.
6-7 hours at late at night into the morning. Yeah. Like that ruined my sleep schedule, but it was worth it.
Sleep now.
But I would say the film I'm introducing to the new fan, the self-imposed restriction was I couldn't do any of the legendary films, but for me it's Godzilla 2000. I would say arguably because it has a better English dub. The dub is a lot better than the sub in my own personal opinion. I would say that it doesn't take itself necessarily super seriously. Not all the Godzilla movies take themselves super seriously, and I think that if I want someone to go in there and be like, I really enjoyed this, and they're not like a stick in the mud, or like they've got like a colossal oak tree shoved up their ass or something, I think they're going to enjoy the more comical aspects of it and sort of embrace the fact that like there are just, like very outlandish things about the franchise, and that's cool. Yeah. It's got CGI in it. It's not the best CGI, and I think that the margin for error when it comes to like what someone will accept, I think, is the suits in 2000 and then the CGI 2000. If they're like, it's not the best, but I can accept it, then I can be like, oh, okay, you want to go later back in the, like, go back to Heisei stuff, go back to Showa. And if they're like, oh, yeah, sure, and they like that, well, that's good. But like, and if they're saying, oh, that's not what I want to do, I need something a little bit more, I'll be like, okay, let's go like further. Let's go to Shin or something like that. And I'd also say that because Godzilla 2000 has a monster battle into it, it's definitely a good enough monster battle where someone can be like, okay, this is kind of what I'm expecting. And then if they're like, oh, I expected more WWE monster suits, I'd be like, oh, let's do some Showa. And if they're like, oh, I really, really loved my beam. I liked Godzilla's orange beam. I'm like, oh, let's do Heisei then. And then I would say how Adam likes to kiss of death. I like Orga's failed Vor experiments, because seeing him just like heat up and then just explode, that's such a good effect. And like seeing the mix of like CGI with the muscle that's holding Orga's like mouth together was all CGI, but the rest of that was a suit. Yeah, that was a really good seamless effect. And then the end of it, and just that ending shot with Godzilla shooting his atomic breath into the city with an old Fikube check in the back. It's got all that classic like generic Godzilla that I'm like, you know what, it's good generic, and I think that that's a good starting point for people to go off with. But that's just me, and I think like if I said no, if I like got rid of the no legendary, I probably would say 2014 too. But I think that if you're really interested in watching Godzilla, I think you owe it to yourself to like bite the bullet and watch at least one Toho film first, arguably. And then of course, like if they ask me about the other Godzilla films in America, I just say, oh no, we just had two. Kong's coming up, but yeah, we've only had two so far. There's no other ones.
You know, my stance on that movie of 98, like I'm indifferent about it. Like, oh my god! No, let me finish.
No, this thing hit my dog. No, go.
I don't like it enough to ever have the urge to watch it, but I don't hate it enough to ever not want to watch it, if that makes sense.
I
Like,
can
if someone says, here, let's watch a horrible movie, I don't know, let's watch Robot Monster, if you guys know what that movie is.
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
It's just a horrible
I did it
50s
first.
movie. You watch Robot Monster or Godzilla 98. I'll probably watch 98. You know, if it's the better choice out of the movies I'm given, I'll watch it, but I'm never like, you know what I need to watch? 98. I'm never like that.
Yeah, I can agree with that totally. And I would say even out of like the really bad versions of any film franchise, I'm a Godzilla fan, so 98 is always going to get my pick. Last Jedi or 98, 98. Dragon Ball Evolution or 98, 98. Yeah, I can. I'm not going to just be bad. I'm not saying
I would rather watch 98 over Godzilla's Revenge.
I'm gonna kick your ass. I will find you.
To be fair, the only actual problem I have, other than the crappy soundtrack that like was by the artist that they came out with that movie, like, you know, with Puff Daddy and all that kind of crap. Outside of that, the only actual issue I have with Godzilla 1998 is the fact that he died from 12 missiles, something like that.
I think it was.
People get really pedantic about the amount and be like, "Oh, that's a large amount of missiles. He's
Like-
still strong."
Like that's the one thing. Like, the whole film would have been okay with me if they had not, if he didn't die from that. You know, if he'd have died from any other means, but missiles, come on, missiles. Like, that's what killed it for me, even when I saw it in theaters back in 1998. Like,
for me, for me to not hate the film,
You have to watch another movie that's even shittier.
don't let him die to missiles. Hell, you can make him die to missiles. Just be like, well, we've loaded this interesting concoction here. It should be able to break through his skin and devolve it and excel. Give it a sciencey, give it a unique reason. Godzilla should never die to conventional weaponry. And people say, oh, missiles aren't conventional. Yes, they are. Missiles are very conventional. Get rid of the eggs. That was really dumb.
Why? I liked that. Like, I like the fact that, listen, one of the things I think that the biggest problem with the Monsterverse right now, and even with some of the later entries in the Godzilla, like in the Millennial series, was the fact that they didn't have a baby. Like, Godzilla in the Showa era had a baby, and the Heisei series had a baby. Where's the baby? Where's the baby?
Have you ever realized that 2014 is basically 98?
You're going to hate me for this. I'm not a fan of Final Wars.
I don't care. When people are like, I love this movie to death, I'll get buried with a copy of it on my chest. Like, okay, good for you. I mean, I love Final Wars, and if someone says it's the worst movie they've ever seen, I'm like, okay, we can talk, but, you know, like, I'm not going to murder you over you hating it. So
I appreciate Final Wars for what it was, because it was supposed to be the final film, like the final ever Godzilla film. So they were doing everything. They were going over the top, and I can really appreciate that. And I like the references to the Matrix and all that kind of stuff. I like that. But
more than references.
But, you know, when it comes to Final Wars, I would personally, I know it's gonna sound bad, I would watch 1998 over Final Wars.
I'm gonna murder you, Adam. I'm gonna go to your house and I'm gonna shake you.
Although
I'm just kidding.
I do agree with how they dealt with Zilla in Final Wars. I think that's exactly how the fight should have played out. Shouldn't have been anything that dragged on or anything like that.
Love to say, oh, Zilla can speed blitz any monster. They think he has Dragon Ball Z levels of reaction and ability to move. But yes. Oh, God dang it. You lost my train of thought. Damn it. Damn you, Adam. But yeah, I don't mind Godzilla having progeny, but like having so many, I think diminishes the value of what Godzilla is in terms of like a creature and a character. I think that if there was less of them, I would be like, well, it's not able to reproduce as many offspring. It's not able to just overtake the world easily. And if one's really hard to take care of, we've got 5, like, let's say it's like a bushel of like 5 eggs. There's going to be now 5 more of these we have to deal with. those 5 gave birth to 5. Instead, it's like there's 200. It's 200 eggs. 200 eggs or something.
Yeah,
It's
but they all got hit by a couple of missiles and were
exactly. And I feel like it just, I was like, I don't know, it just never sat well with me.
Hang on. How can you say that about the Zilla monster or Zilla version of Godzilla, and yet it's totally okay for the Mutos to be laying as many eggs as the
that's what I was saying. 2014 is just a retelling of
I would say arguably because the Mutos are new monsters, their characterization, this is the film that shows off their characterization, unlike Godzilla, who's had years of characterization and sort of what we can expect from when it even comes to a baby Godzilla. We've had two different series that show the value of a baby Godzilla, and having so many diminishes the
marketability of a baby Godzilla.
I would say, hey, they marketed the baby Godzillas a lot. Like, have you? I wasn't born in '98, but did you see the amount of toys for baby Godzillas back in the day?
Yeah, I've seen it like in comic stores. Like, there's like a whole wall of all the Treadmasters.
And then there was even like it was like a graphic novel. It was like Attack of the Baby Godzillas, and then there was the online game, which had you either playing as a baby Godzilla or a military man. Like, there are things that having a lot of eggs in '98 does that could be positives, but just never was for me. I never felt that.
Bad execution. I can agree with that. It was bad execution on the idea of having the babies, but
like, I would say, like, a lot of people always compare it to Jurassic Park. I think the Velociraptors in Jurassic Park were more threatening than the baby Godzillas, even if they were smaller and a lot weaker biologically. But it's because there were so few of them. How they acted presented a level of intelligence, and especially with like how they would like have shots with the raptors kind of just looking at the camera, or like you could see them thinking. There was a level of malice.
The adults or the babies?
Yeah,
the adult raptors.
One thing I think would have made the threat of reproducing Godzilla more threatening, I guess, is like what you said: have fewer eggs, but have them like distributed around the city, where it's not just all in one pocket, where a well-placed missile can destroy all of them. It's kind of like what some complaints with the Alien movies. You know, the first one is so scary because it's only one
alien, and then when Cameron made Aliens, it became an action film.
Yeah, and then there's military people who know how to handle themselves with weaponry and all this machinery and firearms. Like, they're just mowing down aliens, and they're just getting killed so much that it kind of desensitizes you. But in the original, you know, there's only one. It's people who don't know how to handle themselves with weaponry and firearms.
Space truckers dealing with an alien.
Yeah. So, but
and I would even say like how the context of the Space Marines fighting the aliens gave the aliens more malice in Aliens than it did in '98, because you're dealing with like a group of trained soldiers who are, even in groups, they're still getting picked off by xenomorphs left and right. Unlike in '98, where it's like you sort of draw it out, and it feels almost comedic in some cases. Like, they'd be like, oh, is it going to break through? And then it just breaks through. And they're like, oh, no. And then for some reason, they're the only characters who decide not to run. But then, like, untrained civilians are outrunning them. And then also the ball and gumball scene, when they throw the things down and they just slip and slide all over it. And I think when
for someone who doesn't like the '98 movie, he sure has a really good memory of it.
Oh no, trust me, because when I last year when I was working on a video, I still have that video scripted. I told myself I would watch it, and I watched it 3 times a day for a full week. Once on the way to school.
Oh, I remember
I got to
this.
School,
Sorry about
and
that.
then while I was at school at college, anytime I had free time, I'd watch it there, and then on the way back home, I'd watch it again.
I remember you saying that on the like Crazy Musical Chairs live stream.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in March or whatever it was. I remember you saying something like that.
If my like iPad could like clock how many hours I've watched films over and over again, '98 would probably be up there with King of the Monsters, because I have Shin, 2014, caught him in '98 is the only Godzilla films I have on there. And for the sake of research and remembering it, I made sure to watch the hell out of '98. But other things I did not like about '98, give him an actual atomic breath. You gave his son it, and then you gave him it back in Godzilla the series. Just give him the atomic breath. The power breath idea was really dumb in the script, and it feels like a licking your hand and slapping your fans in the face, to have the sound of the crack against the face sound even worse when you introduce like the flaming cars, to be like, he breathes fire, guys. And there's still people who tell me he breathes fire when I'll break down the scene frame by frame, and I will say
spark that ignites the gas. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I will show you pictures. I'll be like, here's the flaming car. Here's the fires from the car being pushed forward. He does not breathe fire. Stop talking to me about it.
You know, I think so. If you're gonna like nitpick about things like that, which I'm not against at all, because I agree he should have had a flame breath in the movie. Some of the things that people don't really consider, like the average Godzilla fan or even Tokusatsu fan, is they don't think about what goes into the production, what goes into the script writing when they decided to like cast Matthew Broderick. Why did they decide to cast him? You know what I'm saying? Like, why did they decide to
stay off?
Exactly. Yeah. Like the people like, and this goes back to 2014. You know, why did they decide to cast
Aaron Taylor Johnson,
and I can't remember her name, his wife,
Elizabeth Olsen, yeah.
Elizabeth Olsen and Bryan Cranston. Like, why did they decide to cast him? Well, Bryan Cranston was a part of an extremely successful TV series that everybody loved.
Before you continue, Brandon just says somehow every live stream ends up being a 98 discussion.
It does. Get off 98. But my point is,
I have a feeling you secretly love it.
I think he does.
Someone tried to make that argument that because I know so much about the film and I can criticize it the way I do, that I love it. And I'm like, okay.
Or, I mean,
I had the same thing in elementary school. I was drawing Godzilla so much that a bunch of people were like, "Oh, you must believe Godzilla is real."
Yeah, like, it's a super weak debating tactic that people use, and I'm like,
you know about it so much, you must love it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying earlier. I was like, you know, for someone who really doesn't like it, you know a lot more. You have a lot of memories about it. But my point is, like, if you're a fan of the movies, like, you know, I'm a composer. I've been trying to get into the franchise, so I've done my research on it. I really understand what goes into making a movie, why they choose the actors that they choose, why they chose Robert Downey Jr. to be Iron Man. Not just because he looked like Tony Stark, but Robert Downey Jr. has a big fan base, and they wanted to draw people in.
At the time, wasn't he like on Super Hard Times back then?
Yeah, wasn't he like arrested and like super druggy at that time?
Yeah, no. Really? That was back in the 90s when all that was happening.
Okay.
You gotta remember the MCU didn't kick off until like after 2010.
When did Iron Man come out again? I remember I was a kid when Iron Man came out. 2008.
Yep.
All right, so I was 9 when
2008?
when Iron Man came out. Like, I remember I saw that with all my friends from like my old middle school and elementary middle school. Oh my goodness, that was a good time.
But that's kind of, and like, why did they, for the Dark Knight trilogy, why did they have Christian Bale play Batman? American Psycho, Reign of Fire. There's a ton of movies that he was in. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of why was Liam Neeson in the Dark Knight trilogy? Fucking Star Wars. Like, everybody knows who Qui-Gon Jinn is.
Star Wars. He had other films that he was really
like, I have a bunch of skills.
I would be a menace to someone like you.
So that being said, nobody ever actually takes into consideration and the Showa era, the Heisei era, and even to a degree the Millennia era of Godzilla movies don't care. If it was made in Toho, I can understand. But when it comes to things like the MonsterVerse, Kong Skull Island, look at Kong Skull Island. Look how many huge names. Samuel Jackson was in there. You had John Goodman,
Brie Larson. Yeah,
we don't consider Brie Larson a big name on this channel.
Oh, dude, she started a YouTube channel.
I know. It's wow. It's so. I saw the first video. That was so fake. That upsets me. That actually upsets me because of like I don't like when there's so many celebrities just making YouTube channel. It's a big thing I have when it comes to like.
I just want to walk up to every single one of them and be like, "Stay in your lane. This is our lane. Stay in your lane."
And
like,
Twitter.
The corporatization of YouTube over the years it's been. I have a bone to pick with it. But
I think everyone does.
Everyone who's not a shill, I guess. But I think the one thing I would always never understand is because I've been doing a little bit more research, and there was someone on Facebook. He got this it was like a big packet of 98 information where it was talking about the production history and what happened post Godzilla versus the Griffin, and like the answers they gave as to why they took out like the Godzilla design that Ricardo Delgado did.
Mhm.
They never gave a specific reason. They just sort of scrapped it, and then they hired Totopoulos, which added to the budget. And then when
They were like,
talking,
"Oh, we're gonna get all these big name guys that did like who? What was the good director? I forgot his
Emery
name.
Devlin and Roland Emmerich.
Yeah, like they straight up said we don't give a fuck about Godzilla.
Yeah, and the only reason why Emmerich did it was because he said he'd do it. He'd do it for the price that Delgado wouldn't. He would do it for less money, but he wanted full creative control. And since I just realized Chuckles in there. Hello everyone. But yeah, he said he'd do it for less money than what's it called, John DeBunt would, but he wanted full creative control. After he was given full creative control, changed almost everything, and then he still ended up spending as much as John DeBunt would have.
I thought it was a little more before market.
There's so many numbers to conflict. I've heard it's more, and then I've heard it's the same. Because I don't like the film so much, I will always say it was just about the same amount. It's never been lower. I've never found a source saying it's lower, but I will give the benefit of the doubt just to be even-handed about it. Mm-hmm. And I know that there was I've been trying to find more research about like the Godzilla Bible that they sent them, which Emmerich obviously didn't follow because like Godzilla's not supposed to eat people, the baby Godzilla still eat people, Godzilla's not supposed to die in a certain way, and a lot of stuff pertaining to the design and stuff like that. I
don't have a problem with Godzilla eating people though.
I like it when he just kills people. I think like eating it diminishes the intelligence of creatures unless like a creature talks, and like I think it works better in fantasy for me than like in sci-fi and stuff when you have a really intelligent creature that for some reason also eats people. And I think like just being based on size and all that. I know that there was earlier 98 scripts where Godzilla was a lot smaller and he could like someone could fit in his hand as like relatively good size. I can understand him eating people when he was that small, but other than that, like regular size normal Godzilla, no. And this is just something I find funny is the fact that the whole what's it called, the size does matter campaign for that movie, but he wasn't the biggest Godzilla even for that time.
No. Yeah.
He's the lightest Godzilla. Not the smallest, but just the lightest. 500 tons. And since obviously we talked about Godzilla and I want to get away from 98, Ultraman, KaiMo, how much experience do you have with Ultraman? Because I know Scrye has like next to none.
I've seen some. I've been watching. I was on the middle of episode 4 of Ultraman Z or Z on the YouTube, but I mean I've seen it like 2 episodes of Ultra Q, half like pretty much where D-Man ended his review for the original series. Watched a little bit of Leo. It's very take it or leave it. I have read and watched the manga anime thing on Netflix.
What is your opinions on that? I know both of you have seen that actually.
I really enjoyed the manga and the anime. They did it pretty faithful. I mean, it's the same story. It's not. It doesn't veer off. I mean, there are some changes.
I know there is one big change that's definitely it's going to affect season 2, depending on like how that goes down, like with Black King and stuff, how that whole thing happened. Yeah. But yeah, it's very faithful, I would say.
Yeah. So I still need to read the next 2 or 3 or whatever it is volumes. But
which ones are you on? Are you on 11 and 13? 11, 12, 13?
I finished 11. I need 12 and 13. So but that's pretty much it. I mean,
yeah, like I
did buy these, the Figure Arts Ginga and Zed, but I'm using these for a project. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, I have up to 10, 11 on my shelf right over on my left.
Figure Arts?
And then no, the Ultraman manga. I have up to those volumes because my Barnes & Noble stopped holding them.
Yeah, mine too.
So I had to look at the rest of it online. And again, I really like it. It's definitely faithful. But for people who like are Ultraman fans looking at this, they're gonna be like, that's not Ultraman. But for people who are definitely not super big into Ultraman, I think this is definitely something they might be interested in. Like,
Yeah.
what's your opinion on it, Scrye? Because I know you have your thoughts on Ultraman, and I will let you rant right now because
Well, I
all things considered.
don't have anything personally against what anybody enjoys. Okay.
Mhm.
I personally have not been enjoying any iteration of Ultraman that I have tried, and I am literally trying. Like I'm being asked to be on live streams to talk about this kind of stuff. To like, for instance, I'll give you another good example. Titan Goji was asking me about the Gundam series, and
Mhm.
I've only seen scattered episodes of Wing and 08th MS Team. I never actually sat down and watched the whole thing.
Oh, I love OAMS team.
Yeah,
Oh.
but I've never seen the original. I don't know. I really don't know what's going on in the universe. So I tried to give it a fair shot, and I watched the original 3 movies. I didn't see the series because I know they condensed them down into movies, and
Yeah.
Trying to be a content creator, I don't have a lot of time to watch a whole 50 episode series. So I watched the movies, and by the end of the second one and into the third one, I started really enjoying it, and I was really getting into it. And I was like, "Oh, this is cool." I've started now. I know about the Zaku and the Federation versus the Zabi family and all that kind of stuff.
Was this after you were like saying how kind of OG was kind of boring? Because I know you sent me that on Discord.
Yeah, the original, the first movie. When I sent you that, I was in the middle of the first movie, and I was like struggling. I was like.
Like honestly, 'cause I was like, damn, he really does not like OG. Because I was like, oh, I wonder what movie he's on. But
Yeah,
then,
no,
like,
that was the first one.
Like, yeah,
The second one happened, and towards the end of the second one, when they really started getting into the whole family drama with
Isn't that the Iron Blooded Orphans?
Yeah, it's Barbados.
Barbados.
but
I have not seen Iron Blooded Orphans. I've actually not heard good things about it.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty good. I like it.
I've
But,
heard
like,
because it's
I'm-
like not good real robot. That's what I've heard. So
I mean, it's basically the like T-800 endoskeleton with
Oh, really?
with armor on. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, look at how like spindly it is. It looks like the T-800 from Terminator. But go ahead.
oh yeah,
I just had
Adam,
to bring this up.
But my point is, I'm actually really trying to get into tokusatsu. For me, all tokusatsu except for Godzilla, because I don't even consider Godzilla tokusatsu, even though it's in that genre, I guess. It's Ultraman didn't build a nation back up from being hit with 2 nuclear bombs. Godzilla did. You know what I'm saying? Ultraman, for me, looking at it without personal feelings and just looking at it for what it is, I've tried to watch the original. I still have the playlist on YouTube where it's all in subtitles, like trying to go through what demon. I couldn't even make it through the second episode. I'm currently on episode 4 of the Netflix series. I was rewatching it last night, and I'm actually kind of getting into the Netflix series because they give you that little bit of information about Ultraman at the very beginning. But I like the fact that it's not giants. Ultraman becoming a giant entity and fighting giant monsters is a huge turnoff for me because, one, the suit looks like, I don't like the way the design of Ultraman looks. I'm a big otaku fan. I love Evangelion, Razafon, a bunch of mech series that aren't Gundam, and I can get behind those. And I'm not saying I dislike Gundam. I just never got into it. But with the way Ultraman, the design of Ultraman, the design of the kaiju, and the fact that whole series was literally made for kids. So the plot's very campy, the dialogue's very campy, how the acting is very campy. Like everything about it is just not appealing to me. Even if I was a kid watching this stuff, I probably wouldn't continue watching it because I did have Ultraman toys and monsters, but I never actually watched the series when I was a kid. Like I had the giant figures that were like, like this tall. I literally had an Ultraman figure and like 3 monsters that he fought. Had no clue about any of it, and all because I was into Godzilla and giant monsters. But now that I'm older, trying to get into it, it's very difficult. I watched Kamen Rider Zoe because Matt recommended it to me, and
I'm just before you continue. Kamen Rider.
Yeah.
Oh, we should send that to Matt.
Kamen Rider.
Did I say it wrong?
You know, Kamen Rider.
Is it Kamen Rider? It
Yeah,
says
Kamen
it's
Rider.
spelled with a K-A.
Yeah, Ka.
Okay.
Because you're Kamen Rider. But that's
Okay.
now I need to Photoshop a Cayman's head onto a rider body. Cayman Rider.
You know what? He could call it Kamen Rider. I'm gonna call it Kamen Rider because I'm
Please.
from Texas and we say washer instead of washer. You know,
No.
so
We have to send that to
No.
Matt though. We have to, whenever Scrye is on like his live
Yes.
streams.
Oh
This
my
episode
God.
is brought to you by Cayman Noodles. Don't buy ramen noodles. Get Cayman noodles.
Oh,
yeah,
no,
I
You
say
need we need to have him like someone needs to buy him a henshin belt so he can be like Kamen Rider henshin.
but I'm really trying to get into it because a lot of people ask me about it. They ask me my opinions on it, and I don't have any solid ones other than the fact that it's very hard for me to get into because of how campy it is and because of how, especially trying to watch the older ones. Even the Ultraman series from like the 90s and stuff, like the effects are so dated and all that kind of stuff. And it's very hard. Like, and I'm not going to lie, watching the old Showa Godzilla movies and the Heisei movies, I pass out before I get 30 minutes into them because of how old they are and how dated it is and stuff like that. So
Like I would say,
and then the other thing about Ultraman, more specifically, like the anime series I'm getting into because I'm big into animation and I like how they present it, like how it's all presented with the animation style and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to Ultraman in general, one of the biggest turnoffs for me is the fan base.
yeah, before we get into that, I want to give my quick thoughts about that. And also Juggler's Juggler
Thank
says
you.
Kamen Rider Stunt Show Spectacular live at Bright
Bright
Fest
Fest.
2021 presented by Gaia.
Gaios. every time Matt pulls up that little lower third, I always kind of cringe because the grammar is incorrect there.
As an English major, I've learned to ignore it because I'm like, you know what?
A complete
it's
and
Bryce
balanced. There
posting.
needs to be a comma there, and you don't need an apostrophe at the O's.
As an English major, I want to ask you your opinions on what they're doing to our dictionary, but that'll be offline.
Oh, don't tell me something's going on.
You haven't? You don't?
No.
Wow.
Dude,
oh yeah, dude.
I've been working like from dawn till dusk essentially since I've gotten back from my job. So like aside from like interacting with you guys, I have not been like interacting at all. Like I wanted to play Demon Souls before I woke up and did all my stuff here. Like, oh man, I have not had the time or energy to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna have to talk tonight.
Yeah, hurt. Well, I want to get your perspective on it, especially like a younger person's perspective on kind of what's going on with the state of things. But that's not what we're talking about. So let's not.
I don't dictionary well.
You don't dictionary well. Do you urban dictionary well?
A little bit, yeah.
I would say like generally. You've talked about the Ultraman series from the 90s. I assume you're talking about like Tiga, Dyna, Gaia.
I've seen clips that have been given to me from other people. Like I was harassing Ultimo. I don't know if you know who he is on Twitter.
Yeah, I know who Ultimo is. I remember I did a debate with him a while ago, back when I was like still a teenager. But
I was trolling the crap out of him on Twitter about it because yesterday was Ultraman Day and I was like, why are we celebrating? Why do we have a holiday for Ultraman? We don't even have one for Godzilla.
Like, we have Godzilla Day.
Do we?
Yeah, I forget the date specifically, but there is one. But I would say like the one I would say for you, since you want more mature stories, the one Ultra series I think everyone's gonna point to would be like, oh, this is mature. You'll probably like it's gonna be Nexus. KaiMo, can you attest to Nexus? Have you seen Nexus at all?
Nope.
Matt was telling me Geed was one that I should check out.
Geed, I would say like all of the newer ones past Ginga have very anime like styled episodic natures to them, where like you'll have character development and
the other big
are all about that. But like if you can't get over the monster designs, even with some of the later stuff, that's definitely always going to be the hard part for you, I would say.
So, well, it's not just the designs don't bother me. It's the effects and stuff like that. But it's not just that either. It's the concept behind Ultraman. I like it. I like how Ultraman is a being from another galaxy, and he came down and merged with a human to help the human fight off these aliens that are trying to invade Earth. Why do you have to get so big? Why does it?
They're big monsters.
Okay, like Power Rangers, that shit, and give me some Zords or something. Why does the person literally have to grow, and then why is the Specium Ray all the time like the go-to end all be all?
Well, because originally Cross, AG Super,
right. I get
that's the out of universe stuff, but like, yeah.
But the other outside of the fan base being the really big turnoff for it is the fact that it is such a huge series. Like, I haven't watched Dragon Ball for the same reason. It's too much. There's too much Dragon Ball. Like,
oh wow. Damn.
Like I've seen the Saiyan saga, and I got like halfway through the Frieza saga, and I'm talking about before they redid it and cut out all the unnecessary episodes.
Oh, talking about Kai?
Yeah, before they did Kai, like there's like 1,000+ episodes of Dragon Ball, from Dragon Ball through Z through GT, even into the new Super, right?
Oh,
and
yeah,
I'm like that's way too much.
That's
sorry.
even, and that's like, oh wow. That's
so,
like not even something like One Piece. One Piece has so many episodes.
I haven't even attempted. I don't want to get into One Piece. It's just too much.
Yeah, One Piece is way too much.
So
even Bleach was kind of hard for me to do. Like I
Naruto, same thing.
Naruto, I had a direct connection to Naruto. Like when I was young, that was on for me. So like I kind of toughed through it because I felt like I owed it to myself for being from that generation, and I enjoyed it. But like, yeah. A lot of the older Ultra series are definitely very long. I even on the Monstrosity panel, they mentioned that how a lot of the newer seasons are like less episodes and than just a movie.
Right. That's why I'm getting into the Netflix series, because it's only like 13 or 12 episodes, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. I can handle that. When you have a series or a saga or a season that has to do with the same stuff, that like it's too much, and especially nowadays, like it's too much. I don't have time to invest into Ultraman like that. Like,
oh, trust me. Like I have Ultraman. I have Ultra Q. I've already gone through Ultra Q. I've gone through all the series I have, but I have Ultra Q, Man, 7, Ace, and then I have Orb's Origin, and it took me a while to get through them. Like I had to be watching them while I was doing other stuff, because there's a lot of stuff you need to get through. Even the first series took me a little bit of time. Like it's definitely an investment. All TV shows generally are.
And see, that's why I'm, Big G here, because he's easy to stick with. He's got 30 something movies, but they're movies.
Not all of them are connected, so essentially it's like one movie at a time.
Right.
And like I would say the one thing with Ultraman being a TV show is that like people always like to say Ultraman has really good characterization, and I'm like, well, yeah, it's a TV show. I would say take one Godzilla movie and then pair it up with one Ultraman series with like a number of episodes being the same amount of time as like one movie. I don't think the amount of characterization you're going to be getting out of those characters is going to be on the level of even some of the worst Godzilla movies, in my personal opinion.
Right.
And people won't make that argument because they want to say that they want to jump on the bandwagon and say that Ultraman has better characterization. And it's like, well, yeah, they have more time to do it. So, and it's not really a fair comparison, but okay.
It's kind of like if one could easily compare it to something like Game of Thrones, right? I'm not saying Game of Thrones is this awesome series, but they ended season 8 because the writers were going to get to work on some Star Wars stuff. And so they ended it the way they ended it. And I'm actually glad that they ended it on season 8, because when you take a look at something like Supernatural, which has 10 plus seasons,
15 seasons.
Yeah, 15 seasons. And they're just like, listen, we would have ended it a long time ago if the fans weren't the ones that were demanding we keep making them.
It was the fans and the studio, because it was supposed to end at season 4, and then they did season 5, and then season 5 ended. People wanted that. Yeah,
and so and it just kept going, and I feel like that's kind of what happened with Ultraman. and they just kept it going and kept it going. And the problem with that is, for someone who literally wasn't a child and didn't have anything to do, and I'm not saying you guys are like children, but I'm talking about like, maybe if I was 8 years old and wasn't trying to run a YouTube channel and didn't have real life things going on, maybe I could get into Ultraman and just sit down and just watch. Like my 14-year-old loves Naruto, and he could literally sit for hours and just watch anime or Naruto or anything. But I can't. I can't, and that's why me now, and this is why I don't like to. I'm not trying to. I don't want to talk down about Ultraman, because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But for me specifically, in the current state of my life, it is very hard to get into. There's nothing aesthetically appealing for me. There's nothing except for the anime. The anime so far is doing a good job keeping my attention. I actually want to go back and keep watching it. But the rest of the series, there's nothing aesthetically appealing. There's nothing story-wise that's really appealing that I haven't already heard before, because unfortunately for me, even though it's an older series and has a lot of themes and story ideas that people have taken from over the years, I saw the newer stuff first before I saw the original. And that's what's killed it for me, because now I feel like, oh, wow, this is just kind of like repeating the same tropes I've already seen and heard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the first Ultraman thing I saw was the Mega Monster Battle Ultra Galaxy.
Was that like at G-Fest?
Yep, that was my first G-Fest, and I saw it, and I enjoyed that movie. I really liked it. But because it is so effects heavy and like what Adam was saying, it's just seeing the newer stuff first kind of spoiled the older stuff.
Right.
Because, I mean, this is, the same thing what D-Man said. I keep going back to what he said, but he and I have very similar tastes, at least with Ultraman. Like you can feel the cheapness of it. Obviously, it's a Japanese TV production, so they have a pretty low budget. But even then, I can't really get over the fact that they are just men in suits. And I hate saying that. I hate saying that because, the thing I love the most and spend an ungodly amount of money on is just people in rubber suits. But for whatever reason, I can't shake that illusion off for Ultraman. I maybe it's just because it's not slow enough to make it seem like it's larger than life characters, or maybe you can see the zipper on every suit. I mean,
I would say, like, even for me, you're looking at someone who was a kid who grew up with the dawn of YouTube, and I see kind of like you're a little younger than me, so you're just a tad bit past that. And I remember Ultraman clips were popping all the time. And I remember the first clip I saw was Ultraman versus Godzilla, which was, episode 10, the mysterious dinosaur base with Jiris in it.
Oh, okay, you gotta stop saying that, because that's not Godzilla.
Yeah, because like it was a black and white version of the clip, and it's right as Ultraman grabs Jiris's frill and rips it off, and I barely see it. You barely see it happen. So all I see is Jiris with the frill, and I'm like, oh, it's Godzilla. And then I got into it, and then a lot of people started posting Mebius clips, and then there was the Ultra Galaxy stuff that was coming out at the time, which I really liked, because that was just monster on monster battles, which I would say
awesome.
That was the good thing about Ultra Galaxy. And then Ultra Galaxy the movie, which was premiered at last year's G-Fest, I saw that online before I even saw it the first time at G-Fest. That was the first time my dad saw it. I saw it as parts online on TV. So like I had a personal connection with Ultraman growing up. I got the original US release that had the it had the dubs in it, the original Ultraman dubs in it. So like I had a young enough connection to Ultraman where the illusion has never been broken for me. But I would even say, comparing it to other live action TV shows in America, like I love Supernatural, but even when I'm looking at Supernatural's budget, it probably blows Ultraman's out of the water. Then I think to myself, I'm like, they made suits, they made miniatures, they have all the effects and stuff. I can't not respect that, and that's just me. And I love both shows for what they are, but like I understand when people say the Ultraman illusion does not work for me. I would say I'm a little bit different when it comes to Rider and Sentai. I like my Kyodai heroes. Unlike Adam, the idea of giant heroes doesn't appeal to you.
No, it does. It does. It's just the way they do Ultraman doesn't. The way they do like, because like I was big into Power Rangers growing up, and I really liked that. And I've come to find out that was like basically
Japanese show,
well, not just a Japanese. I figured as much when I, was younger and watching the fight scenes. And I was like, that looks like Japanese stuff. But I, come to find out it's just a rip off of Super Sentai and all that kind of stuff.
I used to think that Power Rangers was the American version of Godzilla. I used to think, there's someone in America making suits like they do in Japan, and that's Power Rangers. Before I even knew Sentai was a thing. I was like, that's America's suit claim to fame, but then find out.
But I don't have a problem with it's the way Ultraman is presented. Again, it was made for kids, and not like even the Godzilla movies that were geared towards children weren't made for children. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so for me now, it's just hard for me to dive into that.
Yeah. If I was to say like a series that like an Ultraman series I would recommend Nexus. It was built for a older audience. That's a talking point a lot of people like to make. I can definitely attest to that. It's definitely harder storytelling, but it isn't even out yet, and it's gonna take a while for it to come out, and it's got a lot of episodes, so you're gonna have to invest time into it.
Well, see, that's why I'm watching the Netflix. That's why I'm watching the Netflix thing. Like it's not. I don't like it just because they're not getting huge or anything like that. I wouldn't mind seeing that Ultraman get big or something like that, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, you got these aliens that are coming. Okay, that they're huge monsters. Okay, where's Godzilla? Like, why does this guy that's a human need to grow? It never made sense to me to begin with. There was lots of other shows that did that, even in America. That
Superhumans, Super Samurai Cyber Squad.
Yeah, so like it just didn't that never appealed to me. And I thought like I really do. I really like the Netflix series because it feels a little bit more realistic to me. I can totally get behind because it feels more like Guyver to me, if you're familiar with Guyver. Yeah. I love Guyver, and I know that the person who made that was huge in Ultraman and stuff like that, Tokusatsu.
That's Guyver, the one anime that's transferred. It's essentially anime tokusatsu, and it's probably the best at it.
Right. And so, like, I'm a huge Guyver fan, but I just can't get into Ultraman. Like, it's just too... There's just not something appealing about it, except for the anime series, because it's more modern. It has a more modern way of telling the story. Like the first thing you see in the anime series is what's his name's kid falling off of a 5-story drop.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? Did they just kill off a kid? What the hell? You don't see that in the Ultraman, any of the older ones, even in the 90s or the...
Ironically enough, I will say they do something similar to that in Nexus, which is why I recommend it. Which I honestly, if Nexus comes out anytime soon, I will buy you a copy and I will mail it to you just to see if you'll like it. Because if anything, it might even be the only Ultraman series that you'll like, because they do some stuff like that. I will mail you a copy of Nexus when it comes out.
You don't have to mail me a copy. We'll do a live stream without live streaming, and I'll just watch it with you.
Oh yeah, true. That's something you can do.
That way you don't have to spend money.
I got a lot. I work a lot. I'm going to be making a lot of money anyway, so it's not going to matter to me. Although I technically should be saving up for a ring anyway. So
I'm trying to think about your future, man. You got someone that you need to worry about besides me.
Well, yeah, I have plans for her next G-Fest, which I can't wait to do whenever
snap. You better not say anything that you're going to regret saying now.
On the stream, because this is going to be up as you'll see it and hear everything. She'll be like, you spoiled it for me. I hate you.
Spoiler warning.
Exactly. But I know right now it's 6:58 right now. The Dawn of the Monsters panel for Kaiju Con-Line is coming up. And I thank you guys for essentially being on here with me for 2 hours.
Yeah, if you guys been 2 hours?
It's 1 minute. It's been 1 hour and 58 minutes. So if you guys want to stay on, I'm going to be sharing the screen on the of the panel that's on the Kaiju Cast, or you can watch that yourself.
Oh god.
If you guys are down for that, I could just start transferring that over. But if you guys want to head off and do something else, it's cool too.
Oh, I do need to go check on my dad. He was yelling for me a little bit ago.
Oh, don't worry about that, man. It's been great having you. I know I'm definitely have to get you back on because I think we were going to talk about the Ultraman fandom, but it's just time-wise now. So I'm gonna get you back on. I'm gonna probably get a few more people back on to talk about this subject in further detail. So that's gonna be good for you. But thank you for being on, and especially on such short notice too.
KaiMo?
And then KaiMo, what about you?
No. Oh yeah, I have to go.
You guys are going. Okay, cool. Again, thank you guys for being on. It's been a pleasure.
We have to talk later, KaiMo. I want to chat with you about some stuff. Now that we're friends on Discord, we gotta have some chats.
Yeah, just hit me up. I'm pretty much free any day. Although I will be starting animating tomorrow on my next project. So,
You're an animator too?
Stop motion animator. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I can talk while I'm animating. Maybe I've never done that actually. I have live streamed while animating, but I'm very quiet. So maybe if I have someone to help, roll the discussion along, that might be a good thing to do.
And the good thing is I actually have all your guys' info in the description. So to anyone who's gonna be watching this later on, just go into the description. Scrye stuff's there, KaiMo stuff's there. Check out the channel, subscribe if you haven't. Probably subscribe to them before you subscribe to me anyway. So yeah. Once again, thank you guys for being on, and I can just remove you guys so you guys can organically just sort of do what you need to do, and it's been great having you guys both on.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. We have to get you guys back on again sometime.
Oh,
I'm always down. Just let me know when.
Yeah,
of course.
I like doing these sort of impromptu.
Yeah. All right. See you guys.
See you later. Bye, everybody.
All right. You're good. I'm just letting them know that I've removed them from the stream, so they are good. All right. Oh, wow. It's already starting. So I need to start sharing my screen with this. All right. So, yeah, this should be showing you Dawn of the Monsters footage right now. Like, wow. They started really quick. They've got their pre-alpha footage going on, it looks like. This is all subject to change. He's got a juggle going on. New ability. All right, so looking at Negadon's attacks, all right, that was a really good kind of, there's the Doom kind of glory kill attack. He's moving along. Oh, looks like that's a Nephilim that we haven't seen before. That's interesting. All right, so there's a block function. Looking at this footage, what I can assume is that the what I can tell, that big punch attack seems to be the ending of a combo, and it's obviously got that slam down attack. James, yeah, the story going on is that you're playing as these controlled monsters to fight the Nephilim, who are the enemy monsters. That's the basic story. I want to make sure that everything's not super laggy. This looks good so far. Looks like, all right, so these are the kind of buildings that you can attack with. It looks like that must be a heavy attack, and obviously they talked about the juggle function. It also appears that not every monster, when they're down, can be like essentially glory killed, because they're staying down there, but they're not coming back up for like glory kills. So I guess that's something you needed like time to do. But this is very much arena focused, and I think that we'll probably see a lot of really good kind of, I'm not sure how to describe it necessarily, but I wouldn't say it may be similar to DMC, I guess, in terms of like you're juggling and stuff. And it looks like you got super armor on that attack. Looks like the new ability. But I'm really digging this new the new Nephilim design. All right, so these guys have got charge. Once again, juggle. So okay, you can't move back on the screen. It looks like, but so you can start juggling them into the walls. And I do actually like that how the last Nephilim you kill ends up being the one that has this kind of slow motion attack. So you're breaking through another wall. There must be some lore behind this, but I think those trees. Yep. So this is the stages. I do actually like this, how the stylized version of this. I think the kaiju really do stand out. Oh, whoa. That's a lot of guys. I actually made a joke. I was going to make a joke about a video with having this many kaiju on the screen. But, wow, okay. So that was like, there was like at least 8 on the first wave. It's another 4. Okay. But you can definitely get them onto the other side of the screen if you juggle properly, it seems. So, oh, here's a Negadon power-up. And obviously the waves come in with different kaiju. With I don't even know what to call that kind of ogre one. Also, I'm looking at the screen. That's either they're playing on either with Switch controls or a Xbox controller, because maybe X. All right, so it looks like we're gonna be seeing an alpha Nephilim, it appears. Oh, so this is an alpha version of the Machiris. So, oh, this is interesting because this is definitely playing out more like a versus. Like, these are definitely 2 monsters going at it. This might. I really hope people support the game so we can have something like a kind of multiplayer. But this is, I like this. I like the idea of the final monster being this back and forth kind of battle. But Alpha Machiris, I actually really like that. That looks really good. I don't think we're even gonna be able to play as Alpha Machiris, but I really like how it looks. Oh well. That's really cool. Enemies killed, damage dealt, damage taken, build destroyed. Okay, so it's gonna be an overall rating at the end. This will go into different power-ups and sort of how much experience you're gonna be getting. But that was really cool. I love that. And they're the guys. It looks like that's a new Nephilim we haven't seen before. Oh, I like that. That's good. Okay. Oh, whoa. Oh, it's like Incineroar. Yep, someone sent on the chat. Ooh. Oh, this is our first time seeing Ganera gameplay. I just realized they said super heavies aren't bosses. So those are the bosses then. Yeah. I know I'm really loving this. This is really good. Oh no, that's good influence. I really like that. That's very good. Oh, I remember that kaiju in this on the bottom right. No, bottom right. Yeah, bottom right. Did a vote for that. totally forgot to like this earlier, but I'm really happy I did. Taking names. Okay. Yes. Awesome. Okay. Okay, so they're doing everything. All right. Thank you. Good. Next year, 2020. Okay. All right. Oh. That's really cool. More guys. More Kaiju. I never realized this, but that Kaiju looks like he's got arms like right here. Huh. I'm not necessarily sure where they are. Oh, they're probably... Yeah, they're all the way up at the top. Okay. Oh, I would love a Mega Macyrus. That's good. I'm very happy with this. Like, this is really good. Looks like Matt Frank did some work on this. I'm guessing, what's it called? That's Egypt. Probably Japan. I'm not sure about this one. Oh yeah, definitely. I think I asked about the beta, so yeah, like letting us just do that first episode, that'd be good. Okay. Okay, so I'll probably have to do that. Run through multiple times. Yeah, this okay. All right, I'm very happy with how this turned out. Okay, so stream stop. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen there. So hopefully it gets a DLC. Yeah, you're right, Brandon. So I'll probably have to go through that stream again, just so I can get the footage that I missed originally, because after KaiMo and Scrye left, it already started. So even started before 7, but I mean, hey, that's really good. I'm happy they were really on it. But yeah, so I'm gonna have to work on a script for Dawn of the Monsters. So there's new information coming. I can take some pictures for screenshots. And I'm happy to the 5 people who are still in the chat, watching me essentially not talk, because I don't want to talk over those guys too much. And that essentially brought the stream up to another like 46 minutes or so. But once again, I'm happy you guys stayed this long. As always, I'm Zilla, and see you guys next time.